Guardians of Law, Episode 4. I sent Soy home and told him not to say a word until we could produce a plan. He was too frazzled to argue. Soy walked home along the path behind my house that crossed the woods to his, while I headed inside. When I slid the back door open, I saw my mom and the man in the bow tie sitting in our living room. She sat by the fireplace, and he sat closest to the front door. My mom and the man were mid-conversation when I walked in. He looked at me from the corner of his eye, but kept speaking. They're beautiful, Miss Calum. I don't believe I've seen Lilian bulbivorous that vibrant since my last trip overseas, said the man, as he touched the lilies that were on the table between them. Oh, you're too nice, said my mum with a giggle. My mum wasn't known for giggling, but flowers were one of her most favourite things in the world. She filled the house with them whenever she could. The most that my dad would say about it was that fake flowers cost less. Does your son have an appreciation for flowers as well? The man asked, turning to look at me. His blonde hair was pressed firmly against the top of his head, and his pale skin looked almost shiny. The thing that stood out the most, though, was his toothy grin. I felt uneasy. I wished that I was still talking to the frog instead. Ah, there you are. Come have a seat and say hello to Mr. my mother said, stopping for a moment. Reem, he finished for her. And it's a pleasure to meet you, young man. Hello, I said. Good job, my mum whispered happily. That's exactly where a hello goes. Mr. Reem is from the school board, she said louder, and he's here to... Once again, she wasn't sure how to finish her sentence. I'm here to speak with you about Miss Weaver's class, he interjected. We've begun an initiative where we, the school board members, speak directly with students to learn more about their experiences in the school system. We'd like to have an open dialogue between the administration and the children. I think that's just wonderful, said my mom. She was smiling ear to ear, looking for me to agree. I gave a nod. Then I waited for someone else to speak. Mrs. Calum, we found that students tend to be freer and more honest with their feelings when their parents can't hear. I assure you, I've been trained in creating an atmosphere where students can speak their mind without fear of unjust punishment, said Mr. Reem. I see, said my mom. She turned to me and spoke in her usual kind voice. I'm going to be right here in the kitchen if you need anything, sweetie. Remember that you can be honest with Mr. Reem, and nothing bad will happen, okay? I nodded and watched my mum leave the kitchen. I looked at Mr. Reem's clothing. He wore a blue suit with a yellow bow tie. It wasn't a regular yellow, though, so I could see why my mum had mentioned it. As he moved, the light reflected off it in every direction. It didn't move like clothes usually do. In fact, it didn't move at all. I also noticed just how tall Mr. Ream was. He was taller than my mum, even when he was sitting down. Has anything strange happened at school in the past couple of days? He asked right away. I shook my head hard and fast. You can tell me. I'm here to help, he said in a friendly voice. You see, I didn't tell your mom this because I didn't want to worry her. Now Mr. Ream leaned in closer. His mouth looked larger by a second. I was almost positive that he could eat a whole sandwich in one bite. There's a, he said, pausing, person who has been bothering students. Some little birdies told me that perhaps they've been bothering you. He gave the largest smile I had ever seen. 2 sandwiches, at least. I knew deep down that he meant the frog. That's when she acted so funny when she heard about his bow tie. Well, what does the person look like? I asked shyly. That's the tricky part, he replied. This person likes to disguise themselves in different ways. Ways that might even seem impossible. He was only a foot away now. 3 sandwiches and a side of fries, I decided. He continued. They may even be disguised as an animal. My eyes got wide. Mr. Reams got small. You have seen them, Mr. Ream said, trying to hide his excitement. I shook my head. I didn't say that. You did, I said defensively. But you have, haven't you? He said sympathetically. Tell me what happened. It's for your own safety. I didn't know what to believe. What's so dangerous about her, anyways? I asked. The moment I said it, I wished that I could take it back. That I could grab the words out of midair and zip them right back into my mouth. But that's not how words work. Her, he said. I couldn't look at him. I had said too much. He spoke sharply in a whisper. So it's true. She has come to see you. Tell me why. I shook my head. Why did she choose to reveal herself to you? Tell me, he demanded. It was nothing, I answered, despite myself. I was just. You were just? You were just what? He prodded. I was confused, but I knew that I did not want to tell this man anything more, and I was not going to make the same mistake twice. I was just catching frogs in the wood with Soy, and we didn't know it was a special frog when we caught it. I swear, and she asked us to let her go, so we did, I said in one breath. Mr. Ream sat back in his seat and listened to me ramble on. And she made me promise not to tell anyone. Am I in trouble? I asked, pretending to cry. I had learned how to fake cry the year before when I tried out for a small part in the school play. As it turned out, the role of Weeping Willow wasn't even a speaking part. It's just true. No crying required. Still, after 40 minutes of standing up on the stage, not being allowed to move, I cried a little anyway. No, he hissed. You just disappointed me. I thought for a moment that you were the. My mum walked in, smiling, with a vase in her hand. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought you might enjoy seeing my latest. She spotted me and stopped. What are you two talking about in here? She asked, a bit concerned. Oh, Mrs. Caleb, your son and I were just. Mr. Ream spluttered. Why is he crying? My mum asked more forcefully. She rushed to my side to console me. It's nothing, Mr. Ream pleaded. Sometimes these talks can be emotional, and if you wouldn't mind me asking just a few more questions. The tears were flowing more freely now. I had become the weepiest widow in the world. I would mind, she said firmly, and if you'd like to keep your job, you'll leave right now. Mr. Ream straightened his jacket and grabbed a briefcase from behind the couch. Yes, of course. Thanks for your time, he said. He opened the door and turned to me. Be sure to let me know if your story changes, he said with an unfriendly glare. My mum put her arm around my shoulder. Out! She shouted. I spent the rest of the night listening to my mum speak on the phone with people from the school district. Apparently, Mr. Ream was highly regarded, but my mum didn't care. She was beyond angry. She yelled at some of the school people and even threatened to call the police once. By bedtime, she seemed a little calmer. Whatever Mr. Ream wanted with that frog, it wasn't good. I decided then and there that I wasn't going to let him get to her. The next morning, my mum gave me an extra long hug and apologized for the 10th time for letting Mr. Ream in the house. I told her for the 10th time that it was all right. Soy and I met in front of my house to walk in school, as usual. I hadn't spoken to him since the treehouse, but it was immediately clear that he had gotten over the backpack chewing phase. How do you think it learned to talk? I mean. How come she could talk? He asked. Without waiting for answer, he continued. And how did it know my name? I mean. I don't know. Same as you, I said honestly. What about the dude with the bow tie? He asked excitedly. His name is Mr. Ream. So he knew about her, I said. About the frog? So I asked. Yeah, he said that he was looking for someone who could disguise themselves as an animal. She was right to warn us. There was something off about him, I said. You didn't tell him anything, right? Asked Soy. I looked down at the ground. I accidentally let on that I knew her, I confessed. You did what? Soy said in shock. I didn't mean to. It came out by accident. And then Mr. Rim grilled me on why she had come to talk to me. Apparently it's a big deal that she did. So, what did you do? Draw a picture of it and tell him everything? Are you recording this conversation for him right now? If you're wearing a wire, you have to tell me, Soy said angrily. No, quit it, Soy, I said. I told Mr. Ream that we were catching frogs, found her by accident, and let her go. Oh. Okay, that's not bad actually, Soy said. Thanks, I said with my head still hanging. And if he looks into it all, the story will check out, since I do love catching frogs. I would catch a few extra this week, just to be safe. So what now? Zoe asked. I really don't know, but we need to find out why that frog's here and why Mr. Reem is after her, I answered. I'm in, said Zoe. I take a frog in glasses over a man in a bow tie any day. I smiled. It felt good to have Zoe on my side. He lowered his voice a little and asked shyly, if we do see it again, could you tell it that I've been really good about calling it a she? Sure thing, I said, promising to lie to a frog for my best friend. Sorry, but this story is to be continued. Thank you for reading this story with me. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out the next part. This Mr. Reem knows a lot about the frog. What do you think he's up to, and what is the frog hiding? Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in our next adventure. Goodbye!